We started to tell people we were going to buy this building. We were all high on life and everyone thought we were absolutely crazy. And
how much did you buy it for?
It was for £1, but we might owe them £1. So, it looked like a war zone. It still had its sparkle, the building. It just sort of glimmered a little bit in the light. It's to make the place better for Burnley, the people that live in Burnley, and to bring people back to Burnley as well, and complement the offer that already exists and work together to strengthen that.
Hi Sophie, hi Michelle, hi Steve, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Not bad, thanks.
Welcome to High Point, and also thanks for having me in Burnley. It's always that thing where I say welcome, but I also visit people and places. So thanks for having me and taking time. Can I first ask you to introduce yourselves, who you are, your position at the Trust Burnley Empire Trust?
So I'm Sophie Gibson. I'm the chair of Burnley Empire Trust. I come from an arts background and also have some knowledge of fundraising. So I do a bit of everything. I think we all do a bit of everything.
Okay, so I'm Michelle Hurst. I got involved with Burnley Empire Trust as a trustee about 2.5 years ago after having a couple of brilliant chats with Sophie, and she got me excited and I got involved. I'm a chartered accountant, so I've worked in corporate businesses for 20 odd years, so hopefully can bring some of that to the party.
Hi, I'm Steve Hogg. I've been involved for about 6 years, I think. I also have my own stonemason company, which brings an asset, I would have thought, to help get the Empire back up and running.
Great. And we wanted to do the episodes in the Empire, but there's a big generator that produces a lot of noise, so we've not been able to do that. And so where are we?
So at the moment, we sat in the salon, previously known as the Red Triangle Cafe, previously known as 160. And so thankfully, Jay Redman, the owner, helped us out, and he's always been kind and generous and supportive for anything that we've done. And as soon as I sort of reached out and asked if there was any room for us, he said yes, so without hesitation. So I'm really grateful that he's...
Do you know when it will be open?
So the salon, I believe they have... So it's just sort of been reborn as the salon recently. And there was an event last Saturday, I think, that may have been the first official opening. And as you can see, it's a bit of an exhibition space as well as a hub for artists.
Okay.
So I believe the current work they have on is sort of like appointment and some open sort of time slots to visit what it is that they're doing. But they've got plenty of stuff online, and I'm sure they're going to do more great things as well.
Great. So if you're listening to the podcast, just have a look at them.
Yeah,
it's quite a nice place as well.
Yeah, I think you can find them at Creative Spaces Burnley on Instagram and Twitter.
Okay. The first question. Let's get straight into the topic. What is Burnley Empire?
So the Burnley Empire, it is a purpose-built music hall of varieties. It was built in 1894 for the people of Burnley to offer a different type of entertainment that didn't have a big enough place to stop off in town at the time. So the Empire is the last remaining of 5 venues similar of its kind. It has been closed since 1995. So it's had a few different reincarnations of types of uses throughout the years. So when it was first built, it had all these world-class performers that went there, and as it went along, it was always at the forefront of technology and its offer to the town. It was the first place in Burnley to screen moving pictures, and as it went on, it did operate as a cinema as well as an event space at the same time. People say that gigs happened before the screenings. I believe there was a manager that was also a manager of bands at the same time as managing the Empire, and he'd get some of the bands on before film started. And as it went along and a bit of a decline, and people going out to these types of venues. Eventually, in the end, it became a bingo hall, which may have very well saved the building, to be honest. So when it closed in 1995, that was when the bingo moved to a different venue in town. And then it was listed as a Grade 2 listed building in 1997, I believe, very much with the help of Theatres Trust. And that was mainly for the principal feature of the decorative plasterwork by Bertie Crew, a renowned theatre designer, which makes the Burnley Empire that much more special. And it retains a lot of that decorative plasterwork now, which helps us when talking about the venue regionally, but nationally. It does have national importance because it is a rare example of its kind. Never mind the only one locally and regionally, but as part of the, national portfolio of these venues, it's one of very few that still remains. So very much this incredible historic venue that's been sort of reawakened, I suppose, as we're on the journey to restore it.
When I did some research about the Empire, I realised around Burnley and around the northwest, it was so active. Obviously, it was a big industrial area, but there was so many event spaces built for the occasion. I guess there was so many people to entertain as well. And Burnley Empire was one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
What's the capacity of it?
So the capacity at its time, it would have been around 2,000 people capacity, but it was also redesigned in 1911. So I mentioned Bertie Crew. The original architects were G.B. Rawcliffe, who were local, but it was 1911 when Bertie Crew sort of reimagined the place and really put his stamp on. And when he did that, the capacity lowered slightly because he was extending parts of the front of the circle to get these decorative features and putting his stamp on it as well. So I suppose, it's gone up and down over its time and its heyday. But to be restored today, we'd hope in the region of a 1,200 capacity, but it's got 3 floors to it as well, essentially. So it could open as a 600 capacity ground floor, depending on what type of performance or event can be sort of happening there at that time.
Yeah, we went earlier and I didn't realise how massive it was.
Yeah,
I was enormous.
Pleased that you was impressed and you thought it was big. Yeah,
it's massive. So when did you come in then? When was the trust created? It's not just you, Sophie. It's also Michelle and Steve.
But Sophie knows more of the information.
Steve just turns up.
I just turn up. Anything construction, fire my way.
I suppose it's been quite a journey to get to that point. So we were a group of people. It was October 2015. I remember being in a cafe in Queen's Park, the Pavilion Cafe, and it was just people were starting to talk about this thing that exists and someone should do something about it. It came from a Facebook group, and so I ended up being in that meeting, and that's how I got involved really ever since. And it originally started by just members of the community getting together saying that someone should do something about this venue. And I was aware of it. I was always intrigued, but I never knew what was inside. I had no idea about the building. So we started to talk about it, do the things that we thought we should do, such as talk to Theatres Trust, who have been incredibly helpful along the whole of the journey. And the council, go through studies, things like that. And during our time of talking about it, seeing if it was viable, it went up for auction. And at that point, the owners at the time, it belonged to the Duchy of Lancaster's estate, and they had it down as a bingo hall and a cinema. They actually didn't realise the historic importance or the existence of the group that were trying to do something about it. So they held off the auction, and that must have been about 2016-17, I think. And then so we were on it, talking to people, trying to, inspire anyone in a position to help to get involved. And it popped up for auction again. And at that point, we couldn't delay or, hold off the auction anymore because they'd done it once, they'd given us time, and it was up for auction. So that's when we decided to do something about it. It wasn't the plan, but no one's really sort of jumping in with us on this. So we decided to form Burnley Empire Limited in order to take ownership of the building. So that's it really. I suppose we were pushed into getting a bit more serious, I suppose, to own the building because it was the right thing to do. So that's how Burnley Empire Trust came about, really. So we were Burnley Empire Limited, and then once we took ownership, we were at the time working alongside National Trust, who were incredibly supportive and helpful, to the point of helping us secure Office grant. Well, as owners of the building through National Lottery Heritage Fund, we had a Resilience Heritage Grant, which was all about making us and the project more resilient. And that included getting charitable status, and 12 months after purchasing the building on, I think it's the 5th of December 2018, Alan, one of our other trustees, worked with a consultant to gain charitable status that did take about 12 months, I would say. I remember being at the launch of Theatres Trust at Risk somewhere in London, and it popped up on his phone that we'd got the status. So that was a good piece of work to create Burnley Empire Trust.
Certainly when I got involved, because I wasn't involved from the beginning, but got involved about 2.5 years ago, one of the things that we talked about that I said I was so impressed with is, especially given my background, was that everything had been set up really professionally. So I was impressed that the asset, i.e. the building, was owned by the limited company, so that from that perspective the trustees were personally protected in terms of any liability, and that alongside that we had the charity almost, so the trust that sat hand in hand with that, but also the governance that had been wrapped around everything, and how you'd not sort of ignored any of that. So for me, coming into it later than everybody else, I was quite not only excited about the project, but comforted with the professional way that everything had been done to that point. So it was really, really, really good.
There was obviously the Theatres Trust organises theatres at risk, and I heard you say that there was a donor that probably didn't give all the money, but gave most of the money to allow you to buy the Empire. Is that right? Are you able to do you know the donor, or you're just not allowed to say?
I think we do. Yeah, well, so and I think it just came. It just came out of the air how it all happened, I suppose. We started to tell people we were going to buy this building. We were all high on life, and everyone thought we were absolutely crazy, and probably including the Theatres Trust, to be fair. So they would just generally sort of say, talk to this person, that person, just do you know what you're going to be taking on, sort of thing. So we'd just been chatting to a variety of different people, and just in conversation with someone that knew about buildings, I suppose, and restoration. And it however it happened, they'd gone from sort of hearing about this idea to wanting to support us. So it was originally a loan, because of course we were taking on that building with no money, and insurance is a factor, as well as maintenance. As soon as we got the building, Steve was there blocking up any potential entry points, and because suddenly we'd gone from complaining to the council that that's open, that's dangerous, things like that. Then it was us that were responsible for that, and someone kindly donated some money to help us get things going and doing things properly. I mean, as Michelle said, impressed that things have been done professionally, and can't believe we were doing it. We were jumping in because someone had to save the building for its future legacy and use for people of Burnley, and someone kindly donated some funds to us because they said that they wanted us to have a chance, and they also wanted us to succeed as well. That's why they did it.
Do you know who you had against you in the auction?
No.
Or against?
Yeah, no, I don't think we did. No.
Did anybody try to outbid you? Or?
Well, it didn't go to auction because we managed to get it sorted before auction day. So our deadline was 5 o'clock the day before the auction, and we managed to sort of...
Right, I didn't get that. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I know. So they offered it to us, say, 2016, whilst we were doing the study, and we were like, no way, we're just a group of people, and we don't even know if it's actually viable yet. So they hold it off auctioning it, and then it popped up for auction again, and we were still just a group of people. And like I said, there was about 2 weeks left, and we thought, okay, if we do this and that, we could do it. But they did offer it to us at £1, I think, if we could sort it all, and we said yes before auction, and the deadline was about 5 p.m. the day before auction. And I think we managed to get a press article out that day as well. We had some support from Napthan's solicitors, who very kindly helped us transfer the ownership on that, in the last half hour or something crazy. We drove over, got things signed, and really kindly supported us with that, as well as Theatres Trust and National Trust, I suppose, and Theatre Search throughout the way. But yeah, I think, people may have gone the next day thinking it was up for sale. I'm not sure. Luckily, it didn't come to us turning up. But even if we did, I don't think we would have, managed to get a bargain. I think they did say, now thinking about it, they had some considerable offers. But that's all that we know. And I believe that they were keen for the theatre to go back into community use, which is probably why they didn't take their offers, and they was keen for us to have a shot at doing it and going into ownership.
How much did you buy it for?
Well, it was for £1, but we might owe them £1. So yeah, we never. Someone might take that up with us one day.
Yeah, it's like I had the Stratford Public Hall, and they bought it for £10.
Wow!
But it costed them £100,000 to renovate it and put it back into use. To be able to use it for the community.
God.
So yeah, there's a lot of money to invest in renovation.
And
putting back to life.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're incredibly lucky that.
And it's fair to say about people like Sean and Jackie, who have now left Evan, but they were a massive help at the beginning of it all, really.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there may be us three and Alan that's not sat here at the moment, but on the journey, there's been different people from different backgrounds that have helped us get to this point. So it has been very much like people from the community, and this wasn't our thing before. Now it very much is, but and people that still support us, that have been involved, they're still around, and when they can help, they will, I'm sure, and I hope.
So you've raised shortly, so you've created a limited company. You bought the Empire, and then you got advice from Theatres Trust to make it a charitable company.
Yeah.
And that's when the Burnley Empire Trust was created.
Yeah.
Then you were able to raise money to do some works, renovate it, or put it some stabilisation works to it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Because we were a charity, so we were eligible to apply for a variety of different grant applications. Prior to that, we were lucky to get some funds with the support of Theatres Trust from Architectural Heritage Fund for the very first viability study that I suppose probably went through them when we were first funding. And then, like I said, we had the support from National Trust for this National Lottery Heritage Grant, which was about £44,000. And then after that, and kind of even as Burnley Empire Limited, we start to get some support through the Burnley Heritage Action Zone scheme, which is about, reimagining the high streets and bringing them to life. So the Empire was involved in sort of the first half of that scheme, that programme, that I think it's in its third or fourth year, I believe. So they helped us as well as Architectural Heritage Fund, we revisited the viability study at different points as well. So yeah, it's been beneficial to get that charitable status, and as well as fundraising and gift aid, it's massively helpful to us.
And the Heritage Action Zone funding was quite critical for us, wasn't it, in terms of making the building stable and watertight?
Yes. When we basically sort of got the keys and we opened the door, it was full of asbestos. There was water coming in everywhere. So when you walk in there now and see it, it's transformed massively in the last 4 years, 3-4 years.
But also community and donations, because between getting that charitable status and more high street stuff, or at some point during the pandemic, we'd done a year's worth of work of, like Steve said, we just stepped into the building, start to clean it up, stabilise, but actually build the information that we have about it of what we need to do next and how, through survey work and building condition stuff. We were gearing up for, let's go for the grants that can now help us with the building. But during the pandemic, any eligible grants that we could have applied for and were planning on applying for had just gone sideways, because they had different priorities to, say, buildings that were already open but suddenly closed, not really where we were at from scratch bottom. So we had to turn to the public to get some funding to start on making it watertight. And the first roof works that we did were partly funded by the public, because we did a crowdfunder campaign that was actually a crowdfunder challenge grant. We had match funding from Architectural Heritage Fund, but really, that helped us do the first clear up, the strip out, really made a difference. And these roof works, because with Steve's knowledge, knew what we needed to do and prioritise what we could with the money. That was incredible, really, in such a tough time for everyone.
I think because you look at the size of it, and we don't have the funds to do it all in one go. We had to break it up into sections to see which bit was the major bits to fix first. So I think we've made it quite safe up there, I would have thought, on the roof now. In areas, not all of it, but...
What exactly did you have to do in the roof?
It was all the eaves. So obviously that was the weakest part, where the timbers had all rotted. So the water was coming in there, so you had to repair all that. But these are all temporary repairs, but they should give us at least 5 years, I would have thought. And then I think 2 stairwells have had rubber roofing, which is pretty much permanent. So it's a lot drier in there now than it ever has been since we've been involved.
And I think the thing we always experience, because we always talk about this, with anybody that gets involved, that comes along to do any of the repair work, almost sort of the building gets under their skin. And so you find that your money actually does go a lot further, because people are prepared to do a lot more for less, and that's just been really brilliant, hasn't it? It's been really good.
That's everybody from the demolition teams to the roofers to the scaffolders. It's everybody, really.
How do you communicate with the community? Do you have a newsletter, or do you have members? How does that work?
We've thought about doing some sort of friends, members, that we've not done yet, so we'd like to work towards something like that. But we do really well on social media and local press as well, like the Burnley Express and Lancashire Telegraph. They're really supportive and great about spreading news about stories, anything happening, updates, which is great to get to those who aren't necessarily online, because not everyone is online or sort of audience and following and supporters. Other than that, the usual Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, who all have their own different audiences. Like on Twitter, we have a lot of football fans, for example, that are really supportive, which is incredible. So that's great. Suddenly, sometimes, maybe when the football's on, there's a lot of like Twitter clarets and turf casts that are retweeting our stuff, and suddenly all these other footy fans, and which is really great. So there's these different communities on different platforms as well.
And are you able to organise any events yet? So outside of the Empire, not just near, but somewhere in Burnley?
We hope to. I mean, over the years,
the Radio Lancashire things as well, haven't you? A couple of times.
Radio Lancashire. That excellent Radio Lancashire for reaching people. I think for events, I mean, we've done a fair share of fundraising, I suppose. Steve mentioned Sean and Jackie. At one point, like, the Empire were huge Queen fans, and I suppose we still are. And we even had a drummer from Queen-esque,
my brother's
Steve's brother, that was behind the force of helping to, talk about, raise awareness and fundraise. So, we've done Queen-esque fundraising events, and
one at Turfmoor, because obviously Sean was a magician.
Yeah, magician. So talk about using everyone's skills. Sean, a magician. So, at one point the theme, and it probably still is, we're big Queen fans and magician fans. So talk about the acts that have been on there. That's why we celebrate them so much. We've had a magic night at the football ground at Turfmoor, and even Chris that was involved, who organised Rocking on the Rooftop, I think, Mr. Green's, from a music background. So we have done these fundraisers in the past, and I think, we're back after COVID and we can do these events now. We do hope to sort of link up with venues in Burnley, because it's important. This is a community project, so we want to make sure that we're out there in the community doing this as well. And so we hope to do more of that kind of stuff this year, especially next year, because it's the 130th anniversary of the opening in October. But also, everyone is itching to get inside the Empire. And for us, I think we all agree that, these people are supporting us without going in there like we once. We bought the building without even going in there. So we're keen to repay people with that kindness of, doing some open days. And we once organised open days, I think it must have been September 2019. We were going to do open days, but unfortunately last minute there was an issue with the asbestos and someone had gone in there and vandalised it, so it was just a no-no. But we released these tickets in preparation that sold out in less than a minute. I know Slipknot tickets were on sale at the same time, and ours sold out quicker, even though there was probably a lot less tickets, and they're sold out in like 2 minutes. But so there's high demand for people to get in there and support, but at the time that had to be cancelled, postponed, and we actually came here to the salon when it was formerly known as 160 and created an open day, as in opening the archives and unseen footage, that kind of stuff. So we would be keen to do something and help generate an income for donations, but gain more support as well by letting people see what it is that they're supporting. And we've been talking about this idea that is now becoming a reality, so it's just reaching more people and making sure everyone knows that the Burnley Empire exists and what is inside.
You did a feasibility study. What did that involve? What are the conclusions? Can you explain a little bit more? I'm always looking at you, Sophie, but Michelle and Steve.
I'll jump in a little bit on this. So we've recently had the feasibility for the stage house. So I guess the Empire in its entirety is a huge project. And I think what we've sort of learned over the past few years is that actually it's probably going to be more feasible, more viable to actually do a series of smaller projects. And we've just had a viability study completed around actually bringing the stage house back into use as a meanwhile use facility, so that can be used as a flexible space for performances, for community events, for education, just create a space that's flexible for the community to use. So that sort of feels a little bit more realistic to get your arms around as a project. And I feel like we're getting the right signs and signals from some of the funders in terms of now that we're starting to talk about that as the start of the project rather than the whole beast, if you like. It feels like we're getting more engagement and it's becoming more, you talk about big hairy projects and the doability of them. This feels more doable in the sort of short to medium term than the longer project. So I think that's got us a little bit excited in terms of getting the community back into the building. So we could start with open days, but then obviously if we can secure the funding to bring the stage house back into use, then we can actually get people in the building and using it for real. And we can start having, we can start operating whilst we then look at how do we then look at the auditorium and the wider project going forward. So it's quite exciting.
How much does it cost to do that? Very first
So
phase.
the stage house, we reckon around about 2 million, and you would probably do that in 2 stages. So you would $1 million and $1 million basically. So you'd spend $1 million getting all the structure correct, the fit out, the utilities, etc., and then your other $1 million would be getting it ready for people to come in for use.
Okay.
The more cosmetic stuff, I suppose.
I guess you need to generate those revenues, show that there's a lot of people interested, and then you can take the second gear and applying for more funding, renovate it more, organising more different types of events. What sort of events would you be organising? Would you be able to organise?
One of the things that came out of the report, which I think I'm going to say we always knew, but it was nice to actually see it in black and white, was that there isn't really a venue in Burnley or sort of local surrounds of the town that's an alternative venue. I suppose the other venues that are around are more, I want to say the word clinical, which probably isn't the right term, but there's sort of a bit more, there's nothing that's alternative that I guess the growing student population of Burnley, given we've got the university here, we've got Burnley College, there's quite a lot of young guys and gals that want to kind of come to a venue that isn't sort of clinical and hard lines. They want something that's a bit more rustic, and that was one of the key things that's come out really, that makes it totally viable in terms of an operation and in terms of getting people through the door. So we think that would actually lead us to probably some music events. So I know Sophie knows that there's quite a lot of local bands. There's quite a big music scene, and that would give them place to practice, but also a place to obviously do some live gigs, etc. But then also you could look at other community use, so using it as a space for education, even people for coming in and looking at the plaster work and sort of real on-site learning about that sort of thing as well. So there's all sorts of flexible uses. So I think you'd probably have, we talked about in the past having kind of you'd have some income generating, but what would be really key is having some free events as well, so that it's open to everybody. Clearly, you're going to need to be generating some cash through the operation, obviously, but we want to make sure that it's a space for everyone. So make sure that you can get as much free things operating as well.
Yeah, it's hard to keep that balance between being open to everybody, but also being financially viable, and especially with the expensive bills that we have to pay now. It's really, really tough. There's some venues that I know they announced the price at which they would like to sell the tickets, so for events, and then there's different grades of prices saying, half of it or whatever you can is good, or you can, if you can't afford coming to the event or paying for that ticket, you can still have it for free. And I think that there's quite a lot of good answers, and people pay the full price because they know the money is redirected or reinvested into the community. Have you got any relationships with any organizations around that you could collaborate with and that would strengthen them and with your presence, but also you would be strengthened from them? So, for example, there's there's shops and bars that could benefit from people attending events in Burnley. Have you done that study?
I suppose we've always seen the Empire, the sort of catalyst for change of regenerating the area as well, and that snowball effect. I say that whilst they are doing up this part of the high street as well. So I mean, yeah, we want Burnley to be a destination for arts and culture, but somewhere to spend time and money as well. So that could be you go out for your brew, whether you get a new outfit or, you know, you go out for your tea before going to the Empire, something like that. And even afterwards, stay out in Burnley. There's, you know, nightlife keeps going sort of thing. So we're definitely keen that Burnley is there in the Empire, in the community and the heart of the town as a venue, but, you know, this thing that connects to everything else as well. And in terms of working with people, when I mentioned the fundraisers, we've been really lucky to get the venues hosting us because they're local and they want it to succeed and be supportive. So we've done that kind of collaboration, and we've been lucky to have things in shop windows as well that uplift the area, but also promote what it is that we're doing and what we have done. And we've just, you know, to talk about support in the very early days, literally when we just started, there was Wayne Hemingway that I remember reaching out to, and without any credibility behind us, he was one of the first people to sort of say, wow, this building needs saving, and to be there as a support. And when we did sort of create Burnley Empire Trust, they supported us with a rebrand. So Hemingway Designs actually created everything that we use currently as Burnley Empire Trust, which we were absolutely grateful for because they did such an amazing job. And I can see a hard hat now with the Burnley Empire Trust on that they created, and we worked with one of their designers, Chloe.
Have you got any stickers?
Oh, we might do in the Empire. I think it might be in that box.
I'd like to put one on my laptop.
All right, we'll see what we can do.
So as a collection,
Yeah.
every place or every trust I've visited, I need the sticker. I don't know, I'm just making that up.
Well, and we do have stickers
I think
somewhere.
they are in the box, I think.
Yeah, we'll.
And it's always, when the work's been going on at the Empire, people who are walking past are always praising and
Yeah.
asking when is it open and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So there's very, very little negativity. It's always positive from the public, really.
There was one day when, so there's the Empire, the building, then there's like a pavement that's cut off behind a fence, and occasionally we have to weed the area. And I remember one time we were sort of cleaning up the area, and there must have been a football match, because there were all these football fans walking past saying, you know, like, go on, well done, and take it. We actually got, I can't remember who they were playing, but someone that had never been to Burnley asking about us. I remember giving him a badge and saying, can you take a picture of us whilst we're weeding as well? This football fan that had come to watch whoever they were playing, I can't quite remember. I know it weren't a Blackburn fan, but whoever it were, they, you know, like just that little bit of raising awareness, just being there, like actually being seen as well, always helps with the high vis and hard hats.
I think we had support from the Weavers Triangle as well recently, didn't we? So the Weavers Triangle is like a local cultural small museum, and they put on an exhibition which was really well attended, I think. And people, I know even a neighbour of mine came on the bus from Manchester to Burnley, and who's heavily involved in theatre for years and years and years, and he stayed all afternoon. He thought it was fabulous. So really good engagement from wider than the town, you know, kind of like you say, nationally there's still quite a lot of interest. And I think Townley Hall as well have done a few things as well where they've exhibited. So there's almost like non-official partnerships, aren't they, really, where we've got engagement from other organisations.
Like that solidarity, I suppose. And previously some of the, I think they might have retired now, but there was the curators and managers at Townley Hall that would dip into their archives and share something. But as historians themselves, they had knowledge to share, pictures, anything like that. So yeah, it's just been amazing, the amount of support we get locally and continue to get, and interest nationally, like the stage when they cover us. That's just phenomenal, really, because then it puts us on a bigger platform for people to hear about us. And going forward, we want to work with as many people as we can, really, because it's to make the place better for Burnley, the people that live in Burnley, and to bring people back to Burnley as well, and complement the offer that already exists, and work together to strengthen that as well.
I can see, as I've got 2 kids, and every time every weekend we try to find places to go to, and not always the same ones. And I can see the theatre being a destination. With the museum, there's a car park just nearby, so it's easy to transfer. But then you spend your whole day for an event at the Empire, and after that you can visit Burnley, go to places like this.
Yeah.
It would be easy to do. And it's only 45 minutes drive from Manchester.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's perfect for nap time in the car.
Yeah. And it's only £2 on the bus.
Yeah.
Is it?
X43.
Yes, £2 on it today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has the council got any master plans to renovate the whole city or a certain area to bring more people into Burnley? Do you know that?
They've currently secured levelling up funding, and the football clubs are a big part of the town, so they are doing some works. I think it's Town to the Turf, which is in the master plan, which is repaving the floor, I think, from the town centre to the football club. So they're doing that at the moment, sort of making that a bit easier access. And over the years, I think we've gained a bit more confidence in the council, and like the Heritage Action Zone, we benefited a little bit from them when we were part of their plans for that. And recently, me and Steve were in the Empire with the new CEO of the council, Lukman Patel, who we'd met for the first time, and he was incredibly kind and came across as really supportive as well. So I think for us, it has been to build the confidence with them, because we started off by a group of people that were complaining a lot, nagging, getting onto them a lot. And I remember when me and Alan went to the council to meet Paul Gattrell, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, who's been amazing as well, actually, at the council, who deals with all the planning and the development. And he's been really supportive. And I remember me and Alan turning up to meet with him, and we were planning to tell him that we were going to buy it. And me and Alan must have just, again, high on life, bouncing off the walls. We're going to buy the Empire. And I think he was a bit mortified, to be honest. But look at us now. And he's someone that has continued to be supportive. He's always there at the other end of the phone, credit to him. So yeah, we've got there with the council, and I'm sure and I hope they'll support us when they can, because also it is Burnley, and they don't have a huge amount of money. They've got a lot of things to do. So when and where they can be supportive, I'm confident and have the faith that they will.
It's the main thing. As long as they keep supporting us, that means more than at the moment.
Yeah, more than money is of course valuable, helpful, but to have their support, that's what it's always been about for us. For them to just say that they support it, and we've had support from the local MP as well. Yeah, who's been encouraging. Yeah, which is something. I recently met the mayor, who said that the Burnley Empire was his favourite building in Burnley. So we'll have to chat to him again. And, he was talking about his memories and love for the building. So it's just, even though we've been talking about it for a few years, we always have to keep talking. And we've had councillors visit as well in the past, that Charlie Briggs, who remembers going when he was younger as a boy, up to the Green Party, have been incredibly supportive. I think during lockdown, Councillor Andy Fewins from the Green Party was actually donating his allowance, in 1 month, he donated some money to the Burnley Empire Trust, which was huge to us because we're grateful for any amount of money that we get, and it means a lot when someone does make a donation, big or small. So, we're getting there, and it's just about making sure everyone knows what it is and what we're doing and the potential of that building. So that's really key and important for us going forward.
It's crazy how much positivity and enthusiasm you can have around renovating a place, but how long it takes to get it up and running is another deal.
Yeah.
And it takes years and years.
Yeah. And, we try to be positive, and I don't know if we were going to talk about it, but we have a really good streak of gaining, successful grant applications. And, we didn't get the level in upfront, but that's fine. We're on the radar. It's just more conversations that we do, but at least we're there anyway. We actually had a chance, and we spoke with the council and the consultants. So, we went through the test for that. But, recently we missed out on the second round of the Shared Prosperity Fund, which it's fine. There's plenty more grants. It's not easy. It's not meant to be easy, but we just keep going, really. And the thing that, we wouldn't be a project if it wasn't for the people of the town and community that support us, because that's what keeps the project going. It's
and we do stretch the money out. How big or small, we do stretch it to the max, don't we, really?
Yeah,
good value.
Like Joe the roofer,
Joe the roofer does a great job up there.
That's done above and beyond, really.
It has to be fair.
And anyone that we've worked with, really, and even UK Restoration Services, they did more than they have to, but Joe definitely goes above and beyond. And I think, as Michelle said earlier, when people come and visit, I think they actually want to help, and they do as much as they can whilst they're there to help us and to help the building, really.
How long does it take, and how hard is it to apply for funding? I presume the bigger the funding, the longer and the harder. But
I think
on average, it's a very naive question.
Some of the smaller funds, I think what we've found is, because we've done, certainly for things like the Levelling Up, where we had to produce a huge business case, which took quite a lot of work behind the scenes. But actually what you find is that then when you go for some of the smaller funding, you've actually got quite a lot of material that you can reuse and that you can rework specifically. So some of the smaller funding is a little bit easier, but it still takes quite a lot of time, because you have to be quite... The rules are obviously quite specific and quite rigid, so you have to make sure that you've met all the criteria. So there isn't sometimes room for creativity in some of the applications. You have to make sure that you've ticked every box. Certainly for some of the things that we're looking at the minute, which is bigger funding, that will be quite a lot of work behind the scenes. So quite a lot of financial modelling, and quite a lot of narrative that will need to be written up, business plans, the story around the vision and the future and what we want it to be. That can be, it's a big piece of work. But I think we've got, as we talked about earlier, because we've got the different skill sets. So we've got Alan that can keep us sort of governance, and Alan will always be he'll test everything. So that's quite good, because he can almost be the sort of critical friend in the group that'll check that we've thought of everything that we possibly can. And I think, I'll obviously bring that sort of financial modelling mindset. We've got Steve that's got, so we kind of bring all that. I think we get quite a good outcome. But I think some of I'm probably rambling a bit now, but I think, I definitely am rambling. But I think some of the bigger, chunkier funding applications, we've obviously got help coming from left, right and centre from people like Theatres Trust and Architectural Heritage Fund, who will actually bring some more expertise into our team, so that we can get the best package of applications that we can do. So that's fabulous that there's that support, and it doesn't just rely on us kind of internally working through it.
There was Peter Middleton, that we worked with on our last Architectural Heritage Fund.
Yeah.
And he was a massive support for us and really incredible in his expertise and encouragement as well, which was really useful. I think everyone we've worked with has been amazing. And, Architectural Heritage Fund, for an example, like you'd never meet a nicer bunch of people, they're just so kind with the time and knowledge, sharing the knowledge. But, same for Theatres Trust. They've definitely been a rock over the years, just there to talk to as people, but also as the Empire and having that support. So they, Theatres Trust have been very important, really, to our venue, and I'm sure all other venues across the country. They're massive, really good.
David Wilmore's been
Of course, David Wilmore. Yeah, David Wilmore's been there. So David Wilmore.
We're going to have David, hopefully, in a few weeks or, months, I'd say, hopefully.
Well, I was once on a tour.
For the podcast.
I can't remember, where was it? I was once on a tour somewhere at a theatre, and someone actually stopped the tour to say there was a tour guide, stopped it to say that you need to talk to David Wilmore. Yeah. He has the most knowledge, within Europe, he is the pro. And that was like, there was a tour guide there and this guy just stopped it and said, you need David Wilmore. He wasn't there that day. But
that's nearly exactly what Claire from Theatres Trust said.
Really?
You need to speak to David and have him in your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, and David, again, just so kind and generous with his time, who is always there.
He's always there.
Yeah. And, gets a call at me at like 4:30 on a Friday when he's wrapping up for the weekend. He's been incredible. He was involved with the very first viability study before us, when there was a local Amdram Society, Burnley Light Opera Society, who wanted to do something with the Empire when it first closed in somewhere between 95 and 97. So he's been involved since then, really, of something to happen with the Empire. And we got in touch, and I think he'd just been waiting to hear from someone. So he's been incredible, absolutely knowledgeable.
His knowledge was like encyclopedic, isn't it? About it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and he's come to Burnley and helped us. Yeah, and supported us with like the open days, and he's the one that knows about Bertie Crew as well, and has all that knowledge, and and he's just generally passionate at what he does, and just incredible.
Can you describe exactly how helpful the Theatres Trust was, what they did, what support you got? Probably not maybe funding, but more guidance and direction?
Yeah, well, in the very early days, I think in the first instance, someone who was previously involved, Jilly Grisfontaine, she first wrote to Theatres Trust. It would have been about late 2015, and again I think they'd been waiting to hear about the Empire perhaps, or a group that was interested, so they were really pleased. But how do you save this thing that you've never been in and you don't really know much about? So I remember early days people wrote to Theatres Trust in the first instance, and maybe that's how we got introduced to David Wilmore, I believe. And even in them early days, David Wilmore came and spoke to us about the Empire, but they were sort of incremental on building an initial stakeholders group with the council, with Burnley Civic Trust, Burnley College, UCLan and ourselves, which was initially talking about the Empire and getting the very first viability study commissioned. So, they had our backs, and they were the ones sort of supporting and championing moving forward to do something about the Empire. And they were that voice of credibility, I suppose, that was able to say, theatres in a worse position have been brought back, give it a chance, and give them examples and talk about it. But even with every year there's the Theatres at Risk register that's launched, that brings new awareness.
Which is a great initiative.
Yeah. So, talk about funding. We have been successful in grants from them that have supported us. So we've recently got the Resilient Theatres and Communities, I think, grant through the Theatres at Risk. And that is £12,000 that we were awarded for survey work in the Stage House. So it links up to what Michelle was saying about the viability study. What their funding is helping us to move forward and enable more action on that plan to restore that type of space for a meanwhile use. But in the very early days, the viability study needed funding. So they helped us, with negotiations, talking with the council, encouraging them, who put some money towards it. Theatres Trust actually put some money towards that first phase of the viability study, and then the rest was down to us to fundraise, as well as we did get something from Architectural Heritage Fund. I think we needed to raise about £7,000 ourselves for the split viability study. It was done in 2 versions. The first hurdle, if it wasn't viable at all, just quit, and we said we would back down and that would be that. But it was viable, and we continued to do the second one to explore even more. But they were there for that, and, down to thinking about buying the building and having those conversations, putting us in touch with people. And, we mentioned earlier about it's been up for auction twice. The first time during those viability studies, it was Theatres Trust that were talking to the solicitors for the Duchy of Lancaster, or the representatives, if you will, to negotiate with them a time frame and a time scale of, knocking it on the head for now and maybe revisiting selling it in the future. So, they were there, massive advocates, and having those conversations. And everyone that works there, again, incredibly kind. We've met a few of them over the years, with a bank of expertise as well for different scenarios that have helped us along the way. So yeah, just incredible. And we recently attended a workshop at home in Manchester that was, talking about governance and building, and luckily through that meeting we had a tour of home, which was quite inspiring. The Chair of Theatres Trust is there at home in Manchester. So yeah, it's just incredible, the people that they've introduced us to, the knowledge that they've shared, and goes back to getting that listing status as well, because when the Empire closed, there were not much hope for it then, I suppose, if you will, in terms of political support and people championing it and wanting it to be open. In those times, there were different plans for the area and the town. So they've kept it going, really. They've helped massively, more ways than they'll know, and possibly us.
You also got some work done or collaboration with Manchester Architectural School, is that right?
Yeah, Manchester School of Architecture.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a few posters that were displayed. How did that start? I presume it's a professor that was in touch and knew about the Empire and wanted...
Yeah. So it was Vicky at Manchester School of Architecture that just reached out, and they were interested in their students visiting a town like Burnley and looking at it from different angles and seeing how they could sort of perhaps problem solve and reimagine through, architectural and have a meaningful and purposeful place in the community as well. So students, recent graduates that graduated last year, worked on the Empire, looked at it, and they were actually the first large group to come inside.
How many was it? About 30 of them?
Oh, there was a lot. Yeah, they travelled over on the train to have a look at the Empire. I think they'd come on rainy day and heard about me talk about it from the outside, and as we were going along with stabilisation works and clearing it, we thought, okay, yeah, this will be a good test. So they came over with the students sometime last year to have a look. And the nice thing is that these students, and Manchester School of Architecture is one of the top universities as well for architecture, and these students turned up that were from all over the world, and actually they turned up and they knew the Empire like the back of their hand. They'd been studying it and looking and thinking of ways of reimagining it and how it could serve the community. And
there's some great ideas.
Yeah.
Some weird ones, but
go on, give us some examples.
I think the weird one was make it into a pie factory or something. I just don't know how we saw that. But anyway, there've been a few good ones. One was like a walkway for like models and that to walk in on the catwalk and stuff.
Yeah, like a fashion house.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, really imaginative, and you know, we were so grateful for that connection as well, and we've kept in touch with some of the students that have offered to do things for us that will definitely be taking them up on that to help us. And so we managed to sort of, through the Heritage Action Zone scheme, we had a slot in an empty shop to sort of showcase something. So after their exhibition, which was about this time last year, they had that up in Manchester. I went to see it. It was just all Burnley Empire. And then they offered it to us. So Vicky dropped it off one time, the exhibition. So we've got all the panels that from every student that feature their ideas and what it is that they were doing, working towards. And we hung that in Burnley, and we had a really positive response, and it did wonders for raising awareness, but also, you know, it's a moment in time where there were some visuals of how it could be, and maybe not a pie factory. The
pie factory,
maybe not that, but
I think one had a skateboard park inside. That was kind of cool.
I think we could still do skateboarding inside the Empire, definitely. But you know, just to see what it could be and just ideas. But with them being involved, they came over to Burnley, did their own consultation and spoke to people on the market, interviewed people, what they thought of it, what they thought of the area, the town. So that was a really positive experience for us. And we've had a new wave of students visit since, and I think some of them went a bit rogue, going past the barriers and like looking in the nooks and crannies. We had to sort of catch a few of them. But, you know, it's amazing that we can share that with people, and that we're at a point where, you know, we've always said the building or this project is bigger than the building. It's about taking people on that journey, but for as many people that can learn from it as possible as well. So if that is giving these students an experience of this type of project and gaining access and reality of what it is, what it takes, and, you know, then an insight into that, then that's great. That's what we want to do. We want to provide those experiences. But again, you know, actually that's this a place in Burnley that's attracting people from Manchester, from the city, to come to us and look at this venue, you know. So it's not even open yet or restored yet, but people are wanting to come and get involved and learn more.
Could you just open it now to the public and do an arts exhibition, or like a series of posters about Burnley Empire?
We'd like to, and I think we're close.
I think we're very close.
So we did receive funding from the first round of Shared Prosperity, and again, that money stretched. But part of that, we actually built something that we've been talking about wanting to do for a long time, which is a safe walkway into the building. So we've got that now. We're just considering, do we need to extend that? Yeah. What else do we do to have absolute maximum safety for people going into that venue? You know, more than anything, what we would love to do is invite people into the Empire, because we want to do that. We want things to happen. But there's things that happen around Burnley and in Burnley, like the British Textile Biennial with the super slowway, and we'd love that venue to accommodate some big installations, something that really celebrates and, you know, enables a different type of arts and culture and some sort of event. So that's something that we're working towards. And there has been, as Michelle mentioned, the recent viability study, you know, part of that concluded a space for music and exhibition. So it is something that we're really keen. Anything that doesn't already happen, it can happen at the Empire. It's big enough. You know, I imagine some sort of like Lee Bull sculpture in the Stage House area or anything. You know, we're pretty lucky that we've got support from people in the industry as well. Even, you know, someone like Mark Titchener, who's worked in Burnley before, coincidentally, but he's supportive. I visited him a few years ago now at his studio in London, and, you know, I was updating him about the Empire. So he does great things with his art and what he produces around the world. It'd be great to sort of, we talk about our own version of levelling up, and it is that sort of celebrating people in Burnley as well as bringing people new things, so you don't always have to travel out for all of this type of things that exist in the world.
Yeah, it would be great, wouldn't it, to bring, something that's a like we were talking about earlier, a London style exhibition, and be able to have an installation in the Empire. And I don't think we're that far away from that.
No,
I honestly think it feels more of a reality now than it ever has done, I suppose.
What are your goals then for the future, and what's your big goal? What would you love to happen? What are your ambitions, and what are the next steps, the short-term next steps and the big goal?
Well, from a construction point of view, the stage roof, get that watertight, get the pigeons out really, so then that's asbestos free and pigeon free really, and watertight. So that's and we're almost there, I think, really on that aspect.
I think we're pretty good about talking about this place and this space that, to us is the most wonderful place on earth as well, by the way. And, it will work and it will happen, but it will happen and it is happening. But I guess, reality is got to get it a bit more wind and watertight. And
that's the last hurt. We can remember when 3 years ago we were nowhere near this, so to talk like this now, it's massive for us, really.
Oh yeah, it was just...
I think once it's, as Steve says, once we've got that final bit of the roof sorted there, and we were chatting before we started recording, structurally, we're really lucky that the building is structurally really sound. Yeah. So we've then got almost like a blank canvas a little bit to then realise the ambition that kind of the Stagehouse viability report sets out. So I think, that would be the ambition for us in terms of making sure we can bring that Stagehouse into use. Obviously, there's an element of significant funding to be secured to be able to do that. But I think that feels like a medium-term ambition. I guess in terms of longer-term vision, we want the whole building back into use. But I think we need to be both patient and impatient on that one.
We've got to be patient.
Yeah. I mean, I feel lucky to be involved in this as well, coming into this and gaining all the experience that I have by just being involved and, being able to go in there. It's just incredible. But, it'd be great if we can do something on that stage for the 130th anniversary next October. That would be incredible. And as Michelle says, I think we are actually getting closer, and we're going to be thinking very carefully about, okay, if we do open days this year, because we're in reaching distance, we don't want to spoil it by doing it too soon. It's just, it has to be right for people to get in there, and it's just such a worthwhile and meaningful thing that, and of course, we've got rose-tinted glasses on as well as it being the best place on earth, that, but it should be done. And we were in there earlier, and just like even me that's been in there a few times and just seeing it just blows me away every time. It is such an incredible building, and I was quite pleased when you walked in and you were impressed as well, because you kind of lose a bit
the size of it and the all the decorations that need to be preserved is incredible.
It should be done, and it will be done. It has to be, and we were chatting earlier about, okay, 2 million is a big number for the Stagehouse, but actually it would cost a lot more to get rid of, demolish the building. In the first viability study, that was something that was looked into, and that was a considerable amount of money.
How much?
I think it would be in the region of 2 to 4 million to get rid of the building, but that was quoted a few years ago, so of course that may be even more now. So why not use half of that money to get it going, and then at that point you're certainly building confidence to get the rest going, and you've got that presence. People can see something is happening, because a lot of the time it's us tag teaming grant applications and getting quotes, Steve out there chatting with people. So it's really important for it to be seen, literally be visible, that it is happening, as well as we can say that it is happening. It seems reachable, the amount of money that we've got as a target. We're just climbing that ladder really,
Yeah.
and getting there. And we've got a plan, and we planned again as well. And we'll continue to do what we're doing.
As Sophie said earlier, we've been really pretty successful in terms of funding. Yes, there's been a couple of funds that we've not been successful with, but the shared prosperity, okay, we got some of the first round, but we've not got any of the second round. So, fair enough. And we're thankful to them that we got so I think we've built that credibility in terms of being able to secure those funds. And every conversation we have with other funders is always really, really positive, and they're always keen to work with us and keen on the project and think the project's the right direction to go. So that sort of gives us confidence to keep going at it, really.
Yeah, and we've been learning throughout it as well. And okay, what works, what do we need to be doing, and when do we need to be doing as well? That's important. So yeah, I feel like we're probably in the best position we have been when it comes to us knowledge and writing the bids and what to go for.
Have you got any architects involved in the? Oh, you're going to do that later?
Well,
or not?
Well, we probably
students.
Yeah. I suppose we're getting there.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. Yeah. I think that's probably one of the next big stages, actually, when it comes to
architects, but like a whole design team to thoroughly have a look at.
Yeah, no,
the renovations.
I mean, we've always liked this idea of like an arrested decay approach, taking inspiration from Ali Pali and the recent work that they've done a few years ago. We quite like that approach, and we've had a few people on our radar and whatever, but
we've never got ahead of ourselves, have we? We never thought, we've always bit by bit, save this bit, and then because a building of that size, you need structural surveys and conditional surveys quite a lot, so once they're rolling in, yes, architect will be the next one to get in, really.
Talking about people that we've worked with, and like you mentioned, structural surveys, we've worked with Richard and Linda at Job Clues for a few years that have been actually incredibly supportive of what it is that we've been doing, and working with us to grants and to timescales, to look at, and monitor the condition of the building, the integrity of it, and the condition of it. They've been really helpful in terms of that, and actually, starting to sort of get that familiarity, whatever the word is, it helps for them to know the building and to be seeing it. And I think them themselves have even said that they surprised, that actually they first came and they was probably a bit more worried than what they are now, but everyone really champions what it is that we do on the building.
Even name dropping, obviously Billy from JW Asbestos there, at the very beginning they came in and cleared it all out. I mean, they did more than they probably priced it for.
Always. So, it's incredible. And even at the moment we have things in storage at Storefirst in Burnley that we desperately needed the help over lockdown, when some of the plaster had dropped and it wasn't safe to keep it in the building. It was at a point when people were breaking in. Now, it's the most securest it's ever been, absolutely. And we're looking to bring items that we've had in storage, such as doors with the decorative glass in there, and first lot of plasterwork that we collected back into the Empire, because it's a huge building. We can use it for storage now, as well as items that Steve keeps sneaking in there. There's like a front room in there now. It is incredible. And you talked earlier about collaboration and support, and I've mentioned it's a community that backs this project. And maybe it'd be different if it was a big organisation, someone else doing it, but at the moment everyone is so incredibly supportive. It's it's by the community, for the community, very, very much. And that's what we're working towards, putting it back into use for the community, that's creating access to arts and culture that might not be here, but making sure it's accessible as well. That's the key thing, especially when you talked about them varied ticket prices, making sure it's fair and people can come. It's for everyone. That's what we want it to be.
I've got a few last questions to wrap up, and the first one is, what's your best memory about the Empire, or the whole process of getting the empire fit for purpose?
I think the best memory is when you first walked in for that first time. I think that's you never forget that. From looking from the outside, is you just see a big wall, but once you go in there, you don't expect to see what's actually in there, really. So yeah, worst memory, I suppose, when you go in there and people have broken, that's probably the worst memory. But
What happened?
Well, they vandalise stuff, don't they? And some of these urban explorers break in, which find that they say they're not doing any damage, but the damage they do to get in there costs us really to repair it. So it's where we could spend the money elsewhere. But hopefully that's stopped now. But yeah,
I would agree. I think the best memory is when you first walk in. So I joined the group in the middle of the pandemic. So it was quite a while before, in fact, we were writing the business case and I'd not even been in the building. So that was hilarious. But when we could eventually, I could come and visit and walked in, like you said, you don't know what's behind that wall. And I was just amazed, but I could immediately, because we'd been writing the business case and I'd sort of done that blind, I immediately could visualise that this space can be brought back into use straight away. It was as straight as I walked through the door. It was quite impactful. And I think that's just the best memory. But then I think also in terms of my short time, just the work when we got the funding from Heritage Action Zone and we got a decent enough amount of money and we were able to just keep cracking on and making sure we got the most out of that money to make a difference to the building, to get it watertight, to get it structurally sound. Obviously more to do, but that was sort of, I guess, operationally, the four of us working together really well was a good memory. And I won't do worse memories because I'm not good at that.
I suppose my best memory must be going inside the Empire as well. And I guess, we did not step foot inside that building until we bought it. No wonder people thought we were crackers, but we just powered on because it was the right thing to do. But I remember the first time I went in, I think I was going to meet someone. It was actually Fee, who has a work up here. We were going to meet in a cafe and I was running late as usual, and Steve was at the Empire about to brick up one of the stairwells that went up to the gods, and he must have said, "Oh, do you want to pop in?" I thought, go on then. I remember running up these stairs that were absolutely never ending, jumping over a hole in the floor to just look down on the gods and sort of have a quick look, and then that was my first view, and then I had to rush off sort of thing. But I think I remember the colours of the building, and you look at photos for forever, and and it actually looked like the photos. It looked like it was supposed to look at, and it didn't really disappoint. And it was such a familiar thing. Like, you go into a space for the first time and you get that feeling, and this was a bit of a different one. It was familiar. I'd known it so well because I looked at the photos for many years, been talking about it, and just to go in and one thing I remember, someone shining the light, I think it was Chris at the time, and we were stood in a box that helped with, raise awareness, fundraising, the limited company, and he was shining his torch around, and it just caught a bit of glitter on the trim of the circle that went round Presidium Arch. And so it was from the bingo era, definitely, but, this big, under all that rubble and, it looked like a war zone, it still had its sparkle, the building. It just sort of glimmered a little bit in the light, which was quite sweet. And I'd love to keep the glitter. I don't know if we will do, but yeah.
You need to keep that effect. You get that effect a lot when you just don't know what there is behind a wall or into big volume, but you don't even realize how big the volume is. And as soon as you step in the auditorium, it's like, wow, it's just massive. I got that impression as well in Hume. So it's just, there's the Hume Hippodrome, but there's also I think it's called the auditorium. It's occupied by the NIAMUS, the organization. And the building doesn't look that nice from outside, but when you step in, then you've got small corrugated corridors, and suddenly you get into the theatre, and it's amazing. It's massive, and it's been Obviously, it needs a lot of repair, but it's like the volume of it with all the decorations is really impressive. What's your ultimate dream? Something that you don't think would be feasible?
Well, everything's
Exactly.
possible. You just got to work hard for it. I don't think there's any end to our dreams and ambitions.
Not at all.
Go on then. List them.
So we've covered the practical element where we think it's feasible to bring the stage house, but I guess there's the wider building, but there's also the surrounding area as well. So I think there's something about, yes, if we can complete the whole project, i.e. we don't want it to be a spangly, velvety theatre. We want to keep it as a rested decay. But there might be something where Burnley Empire can expand further than just that building. So being able to bring the Empire presence onto the High Street, onto St James Street, so have some access to the building from that point, and even further surround. So it's just such a huge asset on that side of the street there in terms of the Cow Lane elevation, if you like. But it'd be great to see the Empire down St James Street in whatever way, shape or form that may take. So that's the dream. But yeah, it's not quite a reality yet.
And like I said this earlier, that we're generally on the same page, and I could not agree more. Like I was going to say, it rooted in the community. Want the Empire to be, and it is at the heart of the community. It's in the heart of the town as well, but championed by all. It's a place to be proud of, for the council to be backing it and be saying, having, we have this place. And it'd be great to have like a road sign that points down to the Burnley Empire.
Yeah.
That's what, every time I'm coming back into town, whether it's bus or getting a lift, and I just think it'd be great to have Burnley Empire a part of...
Yeah, with the brown sign.
Burnley Mechanics, Townley Hall, Burnley Empire.
I'd like the dome back on. That'd be cool.
Or the dome.
Yeah. That would be good.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Can you not already put it? That sign.
The whole sign,
I don't think we're ready for that yet.
Get one knocked up, Steve. You could do some of your stuff.
But I like that you've done it's not a fresco, but in front of the railing, or we can clearly see it's Burnley Empire and there's a theatre there. So having that visible all across the city is great, and great marketing, I guess.
Yeah, it's just, I just one day I hope it's truly celebrated and reinstated in its position in the town as this destination for arts and culture that does bring people on the bus for £2 or the train for £12.60 to return, whatever. It's easy to get out of Burnley, but it's also very easy to get into Burnley. And Jay's doing great things here with Salon, and you have your other venues in Burnley, massive music scene like the Royal Dash. They do incredible stuff that pull people in, and we want to be a part of that. And we want people to really sort of celebrate, and for the town to be proud of it as well.
Create the buzz.
What sort of advice would you give to a group of people who are interested in renovating a theatre, an old theatre, starting from fresh in the beginning?
It's find people you can work with. That's
Make sure you've got a good team.
Yeah.
And that you can all work hard together. And I think I said it earlier, almost you need patience and impatience at the same time, which is probably a bit strange. But I think you've got to have the patience because it's going to take a long time. But you've got to have the impatience so that you keep on it in terms of funding, and you've got to have the tenacity to keep going. And even if you get the knockbacks, you need. You've just got to be resilient to that, and just keep going. Nothing's personal. It's it's just funds are short, and you'll get some, you won't get others, and you've just got to keep
find out
going.
what that person's strength is, and that's You just divide them up into that. So you do that, you do that, and that's...
Yeah.
I find with projects, it's really hard to gauge whether you're stubborn or whether it's worth to keep going.
But this is definitely worth.
It's worth it, yeah.
It is. It's so worth it. But we can sit here with a bit of hindsight, but reality is it has been so hard. It has been
hard,
a roller coaster, up and down, and there's been times where we're just working all hours, and it has been a bit horrific. But it's that end goal of... If
we didn't step in, then I don't know where the Empire would be at the moment if we didn't step in, to be honest.
And, even if we stopped now, what would happen to the building? Who knows? So it takes a group like this, I think. And then, of course, as a charity, we're able to unlock and access these funds that are hugely important to us and the building. Theatres Trust, thankfully, exist to support us and similar projects.
I'm really hopeful that in 3, 4, 5, don't know how many years time, I'll be able to come back and do another episode of in the theatre, renovated, up and running, and say what you've been through over those 3 years.
Definitely.
Great. Well, thank you. How can we get in touch with you or follow the trusts? You've got an Instagram account. You've got
I think
Twitter.
If you search Burnley Empire, you'll find us on all social media platforms, or it's just at Burnley Empire on everything, or burnleyempiretrust.co.uk to find a little bit more on our website and sign up to a mailing list as well. You can do that. But hopefully, there's a lot more to come from us, and hopefully a lot more to see and do as well that we can hope to offer people later this year.
Great. Cheers, guys. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye for now. Bye.